The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council stretched 50 stories high. Its crystal walls sparkled with light from 1,000 stars. Beings from across the galaxy filled every seat. Some floated, some had tentacles, others looked like walking trees or clouds of light. In the center of it all, a round table made of pure crystal held the fate of humanity. Ambassador Frank Morrison sat very still. His blue suit looked simple next to the flowing robes and glowing armor of other species. His brown hair, now touched with gray, was neatly combed. His hands rested flat on the table, not moving even when his heart raced. Beside him, Lisa Bennett sorted through papers with careful movements. Her job as his assistant meant keeping track of every word, every promise, every lie told in this room. She had done this for 5 years now. Today felt different. Wrong. Across the table, Vexar of the Zepyrian Empire stood tall on 6 insect-like legs. His body was covered in green armor that looked like shells. His head had many eyes that could see in all directions. When he spoke, his mouth parts clicked and buzzed. A translator turned these sounds into words everyone could understand. The human request is denied, Vexar said. His many eyes looked at Frank without blinking. This is the 7th time you ask for equal status. The answer remains no. Frank took a deep breath. He had trained for moments like this. Stay calm. Show no anger. Remember, the humans were new here, while some of these species had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Ambassador Vexar, Frank began, his voice steady. Humanity has been part of the Galactic Council for 40 years. We have followed every rule. We have shared our resources. We have helped other species when asked. Why do you still see us as children? Vexar's wings buzzed. It was their way of laughing at someone. Because you are children. Your species discovered space travel only 200 years ago. My people have ruled star systems for 10,000 years. You still fight among yourselves on your home planet. You build weapons that could destroy worlds. You are dangerous toddlers playing with fire. Lisa's hand tightened on her pen. Frank touched her arm gently, a warning to stay quiet around the great table. Other species watched. Some nodded agreement with Vexar. Others looked away, uncomfortable but not willing to speak up for humanity. We have changed, Frank said. We learned from our mistakes. The wars you speak of ended before we joined the galaxy. We chose peace. You chose to hide, Vexar clicked. You show us old ships and outdated weapons. You pretend to be harmless, but we know what humans are capable of. We have studied your history. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, you poisoned your own air and water. What would you do to species you see as enemies? Frank stood up slowly. At 6 feet tall, he was still much shorter than Vexar. But something in his stance made several aliens step back. We are not your enemy, Frank said. We have never been your enemy. All we ask is to be treated as equals, to have a voice in decisions that affect us, to trade freely, to explore the stars without needing permission like children asking to leave the house. And if we refuse? Vexar's wings spread wide, a threat display. What will you do, little human? Throw one of your famous tantrums? Shall we fear your primitive weapons and tiny ships? The room went very quiet. Even the floating ethereals stopped their constant humming. Frank looked at Lisa. She gave the smallest nod. They had prepared for this moment, hoped it would never come. Frank touched his ear once. A tiny device hidden there sent a signal across. The galaxy to Admiral John Harper. 1 touch, 3 seconds. The message was simple. Diplomatic solutions have failed. No, Frank said quietly. We will pack up our proposals. We will leave this chamber, and we will stop asking for what should be freely given. He began gathering his papers. Lisa helped, her movements quick and efficient. Around them, aliens whispered in 100 languages. Some seemed pleased, others worried. As Frank reached the door, Vexar called out, "Run home, little humans, hide on your single planet. The galaxy has no place for violent children." Frank stopped at the door but did not turn around. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. We'll see about that. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, lunar base stretched for miles in every direction. The public knew it as a research station. The truth was very different. General Amy Rodriguez walked through steel corridors that hummed with hidden power. Her boots clicked on metal floors polished to mirror brightness. She had commanded this secret base for 10 years, waiting for a day she hoped would never come. That day was today. The signal from Ambassador Morrison had arrived 3 minutes ago. 1 touch, 3 seconds. The meaning was clear. Peace had failed. Amy entered the command center. Dozens of screens covered the walls. Officers in black uniforms worked at stations arranged in perfect rows. They all stood when she entered. "As you were," Amy said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could feel the weight of the moment. Paul Martinez, her tactical officer, approached with a tablet. "General, all department heads are assembled in the briefing room. The Prometheus protocol is ready for your authorization." Amy nodded. She had trained these people herself. Each one had been selected from the best humanity could offer, not just for their skills, but for their ability to keep secrets that could change the galaxy. The briefing room held 20 chairs around an oval table. Every seat was filled. Amy recognized each face. Susan Park from Intelligence, Captain Coleman from the Ghost Fleet, Dr. Chen from the Weapons Research Division, others who had spent years preparing for this moment. Amy stood at the head of the table. On the wall behind her, a display showed Earth floating in space. Beautiful, peaceful, vulnerable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amy began, 40 years ago, humanity entered the galactic community with hope. We showed them our art, our music, our dreams of exploring the stars together. We asked for friendship. We asked for equality. We asked for respect. She paused, looking at each face around the table. Today, that request was denied for the final time. Susan Park leaned forward, her tone sharp. "The Zephyrians leading. The opposition again." Amy nodded. "As always. They see us as violent children who need supervision. They mock our technology. They laugh at our old ships. They think our kindness is proof of weakness." Paul Martinez allowed himself a small, bitter smile. "They've never seen the real fleet." Amy turned toward the display behind her. The image shifted again. Now, instead of Earth, the screen displayed a galactic map dotted with hundreds of red markers. "These are our ghosts," Amy said quietly. "Shipyards, weapons research stations, quantum stealth hubs, supply outposts, relay satellites. We've spent 40 years preparing, not for war, for survival." Captain Jack Coleman, seated at the far end, spoke next. "My Ghost Fleet has completed every silent drill for 10 straight years. We've been hiding in the dark, waiting for a moment like this. 12 dreadnoughts, cloaked cruisers, weapon platforms in orbit around worlds they think are barren. They have no idea what's already near them. And they will," Amy said. By morning, Dr. Kevin Chen stood and tapped the panel in front of him. A new image appeared. Long metallic cylinders floating in space, each marked with glowing red lights. Some were drifting near asteroid belts, others were buried inside moons. "These are singularity mines," he said. "One of them can remove a cruiser from reality in under a second. They destabilize local space-time. We've seeded 200 of them along the Keat hyperlanes. Once activated, no hostile ship will make it near Earth without us knowing and ending." "Kit?" The room fell into a heavy silence again. Amy let it linger before breaking it. "This isn't about dominance," she said. "It's about recognition. They want to call us children. Fine. Then they'll learn what happens when the children grow teeth." Paul looked up. "Authorization?" Amy took a breath. She reached into her coat and removed a small black cylinder, pressing her thumb against the surface. A quiet chime echoed in the room. "Prometheus protocol is active. All Ghost Fleet commanders are cleared for combat. Begin Cerberus operations. Immediately. I want every diplomat out of alien space, every colony shield raised, every orbital weapon platform online." The officers stood in unison, saluting sharply. Humanity had played polite for too long. The gloves were off. Light years away, near the Proxima colony, the UNS Retribution floated in silence. The fold stealth cloaking its hull made it appear like part of the void itself. No energy trail, no sound, no heat signature. Around it, other ships in the Ghost Fleet slowly came online, systems humming as kill orders spread through the network like whispered secrets. Maria Sanchez leaned over her console. "Sir, Enemy dreadnought remains unaware. They're entering bombardment range of Proxima's outer habitats. Captain Jack Coleman stared at the rotating display in front of him. The Zafirian dreadnoughts were predictable. They flew in wide, arcs to show off their size, no shields raised. They didn't expect resistance, they expected fear. "Maria," he said, "how many families are in those habitats right now?" "Rough estimate. Over 30,000 civilians." Jack didn't. "Plink. Target all 12 Zephyrian ships. Relay kill vector to Ghost Fleet commanders 1 through 5, tight formation, fire at will." For the first time in galactic history, a Zephyrian patrol would not return from its intimidation run. The bridge lights dimmed. The hull around the Retribution rippled like water disturbed by a deep current. Then silence broke. A split second. Burst of brilliant white energy lanced across the void. 1, 2, 5. 12 beams of light so pure they barely looked real. They didn't explode. They erased. The lead dreadnought, Admiral Krivash's Pride, vanished mid-flight, vaporized, in a quiet collapse of space-time. No fire, no smoke, just nothing. On the Proxima colony, people stared up at the sky in confusion. The usual thunder from passing Zephyrian ships was replaced by silence, and a new formation, unfamiliar vessels, matte black, shaped like predatory. Birds glowing faintly with blue veins hovered in the distance. The humans on board knew the masquerade was over. At Galactic Council HQ, panic bloomed. Distress signals from Zephyrian patrols screamed across communication hubs. Delegates from over 100 species turned to one another with wide, confused eyes. Vexar received the report mid-sentence, while mocking the Tellan delegates. He paused. Then again, wings twitched. "What is this?" he hissed, his translator, struggling to keep up. "This can't be right." Ambassador Frank Morrison was already gone. The human delegation had quietly left the chamber minutes ago. Vexar's aide stumbled up beside him, pale green and shaking. They destroyed the entire fleet near Proxima. All of it, without warning, without being seen. Admiral Krivash is presumed dead. A cold silence gripped the council, and in that silence many remembered what Frank had said before walking out. "We'll see about that." Admiral John Harper stood aboard the UNS Valiant, the flagship of the Sol Defense Command. Orbiting in high guard, above Earth, it was the nerve center of the entire human war machine. The moment the Cerberus code was confirmed, Harper hadn't flinched. 40 years of patience were done. Now all that mattered was execution. Not anger, not vengeance, just quiet, precise retaliation. His voice was cold and clipped. "Begin broadcast. All frequencies. Galactic standard. Across the stars. On." Thousands of channels, the screen flickered. A stern, silver-haired man in a black uniform appeared. Behind him, Earth turned slowly in the void. No banners, no flags. Just silence and a face the galaxy had never seen before. "I am Admiral John Harper, Commander of Humanity's military forces." His voice cut through static like a blade. "To the species of the Galactic Council, today, a Zephyrian fleet violated proximity treaties near Proxima Colony. Without cause, without declaration. This was not the first time. It will be the last." Aliens across 1,000 systems paused mid-sentence. In war rooms, in markets, in homes. They stared stunned at a face they had never been told to fear, but were now learning they should have. "You were shown weakness for decades. That was a mistake." Ours. A feed lit up behind him. Glimpses of Ghost Fleet ships firing, dreadnoughts, vanishing, silence falling over previously threatened human colonies. As of this broadcast, all human forces are on high alert. Defensive positions have activated across every system. Any further acts of aggression will be met with a response that will not be symbolic. It will be final. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. That made it worse. We are done asking for a seat at the table. From this point forward, we will take one. Then the feed cut. Across the galaxy, panic set in like frost creeping across a window. In the high halls of Kavari Prime, Chancellor Shi Lun of the Tellan Confederacy stood in stunned silence. Her people, known for wisdom and neutrality, had warned the Zephyrians countless times to stop humiliating the humans. Now it seemed humanity had no need for defenders. An aide whispered to her, Should we reach out? Shiloon watched the replay of the Zephyrian fleet being vaporized again. Not destroyed, removed. The physics of the weaponry defied even Tellan science. She gave a slow, graceful nod. Yes, immediately. Request an audience with their ambassador. And, she hesitated, swallowing pride, send condolences to Earth for the disrespect we tolerated too long. Far away, hidden deep within a neutron field, the UNS Abyss uncloaked. It was the Ark-class dreadnought, humanity's most secret ship, a mobile fortress that defied detection. Captain Idris Patel stood on its bridge, arms folded. We're green across the board, his officer reported. Jump beacons synced, rail cannons charged, quantum silos ready. Destination? Voxen 9. The Zephyrians are massing a response. Fleet, 30 ships. Patel didn't blink. Jump. We'll introduce them to our doctrine. Overwhelm, erase, vanish. The ship folded space like paper. It disappeared. Back on Lunar Base, General Amy Rodriguez watched the wave ripple. Reports were flooding in. Tellan diplomats requesting formal alliance. The Drevin matriarchy offering joint military exercises. Even the cold isolationist Zaru transmitting a message. We acknowledge human sovereignty. Amy almost smiled, but she knew better. This wasn't respect, not yet. This was fear. And fear fades unless maintained. Paul Martinez entered the war room, datapad in hand. General, we intercepted internal Zephyrian chatter. They're panicking. Half their council wants to surrender. The other half wants retaliation. Amy raised an eyebrow. Retaliation? They didn't even see what hit them. Exactly, that's what terrifies them. Amy stepped to the tactical map. Dozens of red pings pulsed gently. Ghost Fleet units fully deployed. She tapped one. Dispatch the retribution to border sectors. Let them be seen this time. Paul blinked. Break stealth? Exactly. Let them see our ships. Let them count the guns. Let them guess what else we've been hiding. She paused. Humanity didn't survive its own worst era to be mocked by insects in armor. Let the stars watch us walk with open hands and a closed fist behind our back. In a quiet, sterile chamber aboard the Zephyrian Imperial Core, supreme, strategist Velkith slammed his spindly claws against the console. The room filled with a sharp, angry buzz as diplomats and generals squirmed beneath his many-eyed glare. They destroyed our fleet without warning, without visibility, without even a heat trail, he snapped, mandibles flaring. 12 dreadnoughts, erased, not disabled, not damaged, gone. A junior tactician stammered, We had no idea they possessed such capabilities. Their ships were meant to be obsolete. Velkith's head twisted violently in his direction. Obsolete fleets do not evaporate warships, soldier. Across the room, a transmission flickered. A faint, static image of Admiral Harper's speech, repeated, each word landing like a hammer. We are done asking for a seat at the table. The strategist paced, limbs twitching. They played the long game. They wore masks for decades. They let us humiliate them. They endured our mockery, and now they've slipped the leash. Silence. Then, a whisper, what if we can't stop them? Velkith turned, then we find someone who can. On the other side of the stars, Captain Jack Coleman stood aboard the UNS Retribution, now hovering in full view just outside the Drellin expanse, a region where dozens of neutral worlds lay watching, unsure who to fear more, the aging empire of the Zephyrians, or the newly revealed wrath of mankind. Jack gazed at the alien ships that had been shadowing them for hours. They didn't fire, didn't even hail, just watched. Let them see us, he told Maria Sanchez. Run the rail cannons on slow rotation. Flash the gravity lances. Make it look casual, not aggressive and confident. She nodded, a smirk tugging at her lips. You want to scare them. I want to educate them. Back on Earth, news had already begun to leak. Not the full truth, but just enough. Terms like Ghost Fleet, Singularity Mines, and Retribution were whispered across forums and feeds. People from London to Nairobi to New Seoul woke to the same sensation. Fear, yes, but also pride. The secret they never knew their species carried was now an open secret, and for once, humans weren't the underdogs anymore. At a cafe in Brasilia, a boy watched the replay of Harper's speech and whispered to his mother, "Are we the villains now?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Meanwhile, deep within an asteroid field on the edge of Zephyrian space, UNS Abyss completed its mission. 30 enemy vessels had massed for a counterstrike. They never fired a shot. Captain Idris Patel stood. Amid the smoke of fading aftershocks, the stars distorted where singularity mines had been deployed. What remained of the enemy fleet was fragments, molecular dust spinning silently into the void. No bodies, no debris, just echoes of a force that used to be. "Any survivors?" Patel asked. "One pod. Damaged. Life signs faint," he thought, for a moment. Then, tow it in. Let someone tell the others what happened here. Let one voice carry the weight of extinction. At Galactic Council Command, chaos boiled over. Emergency meetings had collapsed into shouting matches. Accusations flew between species. Why didn't anyone warn them? Who funded the humans? How did they hide so much? And under it all the shame, because they'd laughed for decades. They had dismissed every human proposal, blocked every advancement, used them for labor, for resources, for entertainment. Now those same humans had the power to silence planets, and they weren't even shouting. In Lunar Base, General Amy Rodriguez watched the galactic intelligence reports pile up. Every major government was scrambling. Alliances were shifting. Her comms officer turned. "Ma'am, we're receiving an urgent call from the Ethereals." Amy raised an eyebrow. The Ethereals rarely spoke. Beings of energy and light, ancient and wise. "Put it through." A soft voice, harmonic and layered, echoed through the chamber. "We acknowledge the humans. We request restraint. Please teach, but do not destroy." Amy leaned forward, voice low and firm. "We ask nicely. For 40 years. The line went quiet. Back on Proxima Colony, children played again in the open. For the first time in years, no dreadnoughts cast shadows overhead. No fleets screamed across the sky, no threats. One boy looked up at the stars and asked his father, "Will they come back?" The man looked to the horizon, where sleek black ships still hovered like silent guardians. "If they do, son, they won't leave." Vexar stood frozen beneath the towering spires of the Zephyrian capital, his wings buzzing faintly with a rhythm that betrayed what his many eyes tried to conceal. Fear. Never in his 1,000-year career had he seen a fleet dissolve into nothing. Never had he watched an entire patrol vanish without a signal, without debris, without so much as a scream. And yet, the humans had done just that. His advisors whispered like panicked insects. Their weapons defy thermodynamic principles. Entire fleets made of shadow. Stealth that bypasses gravimetric scan. He slammed a claw into the table. "Enough," he snapped. "They think they've won because they struck first, but they are still alone, still new. They can't possibly face the full force of the galaxy." A junior analyst shifted uneasily. "They might not have to, sir. The Drevin, the Tellan, the Zaru, even the Ethereals are opening talks with them." "We're being isolated." Vexar's head swiveled violently. "Then isolate them further. Break their colonies, undermine their trade, turn the lesser races against them. Fear is a fire. It burns bright, but it can be snuffed out." He paused. Talons clicking against the table. "Dispatch the Shade Pact." The room fell dead silent. Even the most battle-hardened strategists paled. "Sir, they're assassins. Terror artists. That's a violation of the Galactic Code." So was wiping 12 of our ships from existence, far above the conflict. Inside the cloaked citadel orbiting a brown dwarf star, the Council of Ancients met for the first time in a millennium. 7 species, all believed to be extinct. All had chosen silence over politics. Until now. A voice, like rustling leaves, whispered, "The humans have broken the symmetry." Another, crystalline and echoing, "They are the only species to hide their strength while asking for peace." A third, older than sound itself, "We underestimated their restraint." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the eldest among them, a being of translucent plasma that flickered like an old star, murmured, "It is not their technology that frightens us. It is their psychology." "What do you mean?" "No other race has survived its own self-annihilation with such creativity. The humans broke their world, then rebuilt it. They killed each other, then forged laws to prevent it. They were monsters who taught themselves to be moral. A heavy silence followed. What do we do? The plasma being pulsed once. We watch. We do not interfere. Not yet. Back on Earth, in the depths of Geneva Command, Ambassador Frank Morrison stood before a private audience with the President of Earth United Governance. She was a composed woman, lean, sharp-eyed, her voice a scalpel. "Frank," she said, "you did what no one else could. You gave diplomacy a decade longer than it deserved, and when it failed, you didn't flinch." Frank looked tired. "It still feels like losing." She shook her head. "Losing is when you kneel and the galaxy still spits on you. What you did was draw a line, and now, for once, they see us standing on it." He nodded slowly. "How long before they try to cross it again?" She smiled thinly. "They already have." The UNS Retribution hovered near the Yulin Belt, an asteroid-rich zone housing dozens of neutral mining colonies. Ghost Fleet Command had received an encrypted alert. Multiple merchant vessels missing. Unusual power signatures detected. Captain Jack Coleman knew what this meant. "They're testing us, retaliating in shadows because they can't face us in the light." Maria Sanchez confirmed his fears. "We've tracked a signal, sir, not Zephyrian military. A rogue ops signature, old protocols, black market encryption. Could be shade-packed." Jack's jaw tightened. He remembered the stories. Biological saboteurs, telepathic mimics, nano-assassins that dissolve their targets from the inside out. "We're past diplomacy now," he said. "Bring up all civilian transports. Deploy drone nets and activate the Thor protocol." The crew flinched. Thor was a defensive code, brutal, immediate, irreversible. Anything unidentified within range would be reduced to vapor, regardless of origin. "But Captain, there are neutrals out. They're colonies. Then they better identify themselves fast." In orbit above a mining moon, a shade-packed vessel, black, spider-like, hidden between rock shadows, watched the Retribution glow like a demon in the dark. Inside, a whispering voice licked the air. "They've changed. They're not prey anymore." The other assassin did not speak. It was already reaching for the self-destruct sequence, because even monsters know when to run. The shade-packed vessel never made it to its escape jump. One moment it clung silently to the back of an asteroid, observing. The next, a blinding white beam from the UNS Retribution pierced the rock like a spear through paper. There was no explosion. No debris, just the sudden absence of matter where the assassin ship had been. Captain Jack Coleman stood still as the crew monitored the aftermath. "Any sign of others?" Maria checked the sensor grid. "None that stayed. Whatever network the Shade Pact had out here, it's gone now." Jack looked out at the field of broken rock, scattered light and silence. "Good," he said. "Then let that be our final message." In the heart of Lunar Base, General Amy Rodriguez stood before a new assembly, not of military officers but of historians, ethicists and scientists. The war room had shifted. Now it was filled with voices humanity hadn't invited to battle, until now. "We've won the fear," she said. "But what comes after must be earned." A screen displayed the latest galactic map. Dozens of systems, requesting neutral talks, others opening their ports to human trade. 5 civilizations had sent envoys under flags of truce, and the Zephyrians, they'd gone silent. Paul Martinez leaned in, voice low. "They know they can't win. They won't. Fight us in open war again." "No," Amy agreed. "They'll try to make us monsters." Around the table, the assembled minds nodded. Because they all understood what came next wasn't war, it was perception. Humanity had revealed its claws. Now they had to prove they knew when to sheath them. In a quiet chamber on the Tellarian homeworld, a monument was being built, not of stone, but of light. Etched into the glowing pillars were the words of Ambassador Frank Morrison. "We asked for peace. They gave us silence. So we became the noise they couldn't ignore." Tellarian children walked among the lights, touching the glowing scripts in awe. For the first time in their history, their people were teaching human diplomacy in their universities, not because of treaties, because of fear. Aboard the UNS Abyss, Captain Idris Patel watched the galaxy shift like plates under pressure. Surveillance showed rapid demilitarization across key Zephyrian sectors. Fleets retreating, colonies abandoned, a fractured empire collapsing from the inside. And yet, "They'll come again," he said to his XO. "Not this year, maybe not in this century, but one day, someone will rise, someone who forgets why. They feared us," the officer nodded solemnly. "Then we'll remind them." Far beneath Earth's surface, in a vault untouched by light, a machine stirred for the first time in decades. Not a weapon, a recorder. It stored everything: the speeches, the silence, the moments of shame, the burst of pride, a human legacy, and across its display a message blinked slowly in deep crimson: "Peace talks failed. Response recorded." Frank Morrison returned to his home in Vermont a week later. He sat on his porch, watched the sunset, and for the first time in years the stars didn't feel so far away, or so cold. Lisa sat beside him with a cup of tea. "You did it," she said. He shook his head. "We all did," she smiled. "And what now?" He looked up, eyes fixed on the fading light in the sky, where human ships now floated boldly across, systems once closed to them. "Now," he said quietly, "we build. And we never forget what it cost to stop asking." And in every corner of the galaxy the message pulsed, in whispers and screams, in dreams and fears. Humanity is no longer waiting. Humanity is no longer begging. Humanity has arrived.